Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's a tweet going around, or a thread, a tweet thread, a thread of tweets on Twitter right now about ways to write. And this was started by Mags Visaggio, who was talking about captioning, and she was responding to somebody else talking about captions. And anyway, all things considered, Twitter then decided to make it a recommended thread for a while in the search results for comics, and then that got a bunch of other comic people kind of riled up, but no, there's no outright anger. It's one of the interesting things about, I mean, there's some people on Twitter I notice who will post something fairly benign, and people will lose their minds over it. They get really, really angry. Like if you say things like, I don't know, the, the mutants are not a good analogy for a marginalized race. You'd be amazed. People get all huffy about it. It's oh, this is a terrible take, and they get really angry, and people post things and a lot of snide comments. But then other people on Twitter will say things like, "This is the only way to how to write your comic," and you don't get the same kind of shade being thrown, but you do get a nicer shade being thrown. I think it's because some people they're on Twitter and you don't see them lose their minds very often. They just kind of they write what they write and they go on about their business. Like the gentleman who wrote about, hey, I don't think mutants are a good analogy for a marginalized race, and that got a bunch of people angry. But the author in general doesn't go on regular benders complaining about people. He does his thing. And other people will kind of really get into the nitty gritty of, these people are bad and here's a bad. They really get into the personal aspects of Twitter and the anger around the personal aspects of Twitter. And I notice that everybody then tends to tiptoe around them. When they put up a bad take, it's like, well, I don't know about that, is the response, as opposed to bad gatekeeper, get out, kind of statements. It's interesting how it all works. At any rate, what all of this comes down to is a kind of a basic bit of logic that I think people have different styles of writing. They have things that are comfortable for them. If you look at how Chris Claremont writes and how he would plot out issues and everything else is very different from how Donny Cates writes. Does that mean that Chris Claremont's way is inherently better than Donny Cates' way? No. Both gentlemen have been successful in what they've done in comics, and I would argue the biggest reason that they were successful is because they figured out what style worked for them, what was natural to them, what they could produce, and they went with it. They said they kind of honed their craft to themselves, and they go. It would be it's interesting because you don't see these same kind of things being told to artists very often. I mean, you don't go to Jim Lee and say, you know, um, this isn't really the way to draw. You should draw more like Michael Mignola. That's a better. He's better. Why don't Jim Lee? Why don't you draw more like Alex Ross? Your art should be more like Alex Ross and less like this thing you're doing. Yeah. People don't go to Todd McFarlane and say, you know, um, your stuff should look a lot more like Steven Universe. It just it's the stuff you do is people don't do that, and one of the reasons they don't do that is because you'd be a dick if you did that. By the way, I started another video and I just stopped it because I realized like there's 30 seconds and I had the video done, so you can't put up that. And basically, it was like all the angst, all the drama, all the fighting and between the retailers and the fans and the customers and the creators and the publishers and all the different people in this chain. If 90% of that, 90% of the problems, all of that would go away if people would just, be less of an asshole. Just say, you can say, I don't like something, as opposed to, I don't like this and wish you would die. Like, it's that extra little bit that just does the thing. There's the creator who's like, you know, um, this is the comic I write, and if you don't like it, that's I'm sorry about that. Versus, this is a comic I wrote. If you don't like it, go screw yourself, you evil Nazi. See, it's that extra little bit at the end. It's just a tiny little bit. Don't do that, and things go better. It's crazy. It's amazing. It's a magical thing. I'll use I'll talk about Kelly Sue. Amazing. It's amazing what will happen if you just don't act like a dick. Anyway, I got off track a little bit. But at any rate, it artists, you don't see a lot of people doing that very often to artists because it's a dumb comment to make. So why do people feel comfortable doing that to writers? Why do people say, you need to write in this particular way? Different writers have different styles. They have different ways that work for them. The best way to be successful in comics as a writer is not to adhere to someone else's style. It's not to come up with rules about how you think you should write or other people should write. The best way to be successful in comics as a writer is figure out the style that works for you, that's repeatable, that's natural to you, that isn't a grind when you write it, that unlocks your ability to tell a creative story in your words, and go with it. And then if you want to level up that further, figure out a way to make your style marketable. Figure out a way to make your style appeal to a bigger audience. That's pretty much it. Maybe you do it with all captions or no words at all, or maybe you're Brian Michael Bendis and you got a contract that pays you by the words. You use lots and lots of words. I'm just kidding. There's no indication that he was paid by the word. This is a children's show, please. But anyway, just lean into what works for you, just like an artist would. This isn't that complicated. This is, for all intents and purposes, pretty basic stuff. You wouldn't, you wouldn't go to Stephen King and say, "Hey, you need to write more like Roald Dahl," because Roald Dahl, he was very successful and won some awards and everything else, and your words don't sound like his words, so don't do it anymore. You wouldn't go to a best-selling author who writes Star Trek things and tell that person that their writing is bad, that they don't understand the characters that they sold. For example, just hypothetically, you wouldn't do that because it would be a jerk move. You're certainly welcome to your opinion. Certainly, everyone is welcome to their opinion, but your opinion isn't. It shouldn't be inflicted career advice. Emphasis on the word inflicted. I don't know why. It's a peculiar thing about comics that this crops up every couple months, where a writer or somebody in the industry will decide that the best thing that they could do today is to pop off against other people about how they should write, that they should write in a certain way. What's interesting, and kind of I was alluding to it earlier, if you happen to be one of those Twitter or Facebook personalities where people won't, smack back at you hard, you should know, or you should at least have some awareness that people are absolutely doing it in private. You are getting absolutely drugged in lots of places you're not seeing for doing stuff like that, and it, maybe don't do that. You can do whatever you want, but maybe don't, because it won't help you. It is raining like crazy outside. I always wonder, with these videos, am I inflicting trash upon trash? Driving in a car, on a headset, raining hard. Like, what is the outcome? Is it like, I appreciate you listeners who are putting up with this crap. That you're so much in support of the show. You're willing to listen to car noise and rain and chaos and dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. I really, really appreciate that. But in general, I think comics is very nice because we have seen a lot of different writing styles. We've seen a lot of art styles, and I think that's part of what makes it tick. If every single comic that was out was drawn by the exact same artist in the exact same style, that would get old really quickly, even if you love that style. I do think Alex Ross is an amazing artist, and wouldn't it be great if he, drew all kinds of things and did the art and the paintings and everything, just did everything. That would be wonderful. I'd love to see an ongoing series with the quality of Kingdom Come and some of these books. I'd love to see that. That said, I don't want all comics to be that. Part of the magic is when things are different. And the same thing is true with writing. I mean, God help us. What if every single book was Bendis? I wouldn't want that. I want there to be different styles. I want there to be different storytelling methods. I want there to be different ways that the mood of the characters in the book and everything else is established. I think that's cool when you can pull that off. And so that's just me. What about you? What do you think? Isn't part of the magic of comics the difference? That you can get a lot of different types of stories? Isn't that part of what makes it great? That's my opinion anyway. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. All my contact information is in the description of this video. Hey, there's a podcast you can go check out. Just search for Comics by Perch on, Podbean, one of those, iTunes, Spotify, all those kinds of places. You'll find me there. Thanks for listening.